Let's kick this video off with the latest from the US government. It seems like we're constantly teetering between recovering from inflation and heading into recession. We first saw the effects of high interest rates on the banking industry with institutional collapses like Silicon Valley Bank. But now, we're facing another problem that could very well take us into an economic downturn we haven't seen since the pandemic. The problem is the US debt limit. The government is in the midst of negotiations to raise the current US debt limit of just over $31 trillion. And if they can't reach a consensus by the deadline in June, the US government would default on its financial obligations, which would be pretty detrimental to our financial system, to say the least. To understand why this is such a big deal, we have to look at how the US Treasury defines the debt limit. It's defined as the total amount of money that the United States government is authorized to borrow to meet its existing legal obligations. These obligations include welfare programs like Social Security, government salaries, and most importantly, in the context of this channel, interest payments on national debt. So if the debt limit is reached and it isn't raised by Congress, the US will no longer be able to issue new debt to fund payments they need to make. Focusing on the national debt, if the US were to default on its interest payments, it'd be much like you and I defaulting on an outstanding loan. It would hurt our creditworthiness and it would give the lender legal recourse against the unpaid loan. But where you and I would typically borrow money in the form of auto loans and credit cards, the US government mostly borrows money through the issuing of Treasury bonds. And here's why that really matters to the financial markets. In the financial system, it's a generally accepted assumption that a US Treasury is risk-free. And it's been that way for decades and decades. The idea being the US defaulting is such a low probability that you can assume you'll receive full repayment plus whatever interest earned if you hold the bond till maturity. This assumption is so prevalent in our financial systems that the US actually defaulting on issued treasuries would call into question the very foundation of economic models, asset pricing, and how we think about risk. If US debt is no longer risk-free, is anything? Let's also recognize that many of us could be directly affected by a US default. If you are a beneficiary of government-funded programs like Social Security and Medicare, a default could delay those payments and coverage. If you work for the federal government, salaries could be suspended, or at worst, layoffs. And if you're an investor that holds US Treasury bonds, not only are they inherently more risky, but the interest payments themselves could be postponed. So the debt limit is a big deal when you consider the direct impact it has on everyday lives. Raising the national debt ceiling has been a long-standing issue in the political realm. On one hand, many believe raising the debt ceiling enables the government to mindlessly spend money, worsening the large deficit we already operate in. On the other hand, many believe the debt ceiling to be somewhat pointless, given the central role the US plays in the global financial system. Among those is Warren Buffett, who saw these political stalemates as anything but productive. The stalemate we're in now is a matter of one side of the aisle wanting commitments to cut government spending in exchange for agreeing to raise the debt limit. Their point being, if we're going to issue more debt to cover short-term obligations, let's enact policy that will improve the country's long-term balance sheet. But as most of us probably know, nothing is ever black and white in politics. Now, I do want to say, I am by no means taking a political stance on the issue. In fact, I'll never get political on this channel because, quite frankly, I don't think it matters for what we're trying to build here. I believe that no matter what political climate we're in, no matter what type of administration we're governed by, there's an optimal choice to make with your finances. There's a smart way to improve your life through personal finance, investing, and applied entrepreneurship. So yes, raising the debt limit is highly politicized, but putting all of that aside, does it make financial sense for the US to default on its obligations? Let me know what you think. Alright everyone, this video is going to be delayed a bit because a day after filming, it looks like the president and the House Speaker have struck a handshake deal on the debt ceiling. Before we get into the details, I want to emphasize that this does not mean we're safe from US default. The agreement was just one step in a potentially strenuous process. The deal will need to be voted on in the House, then Congress, and then finally signed by the president, making it official. So, barring any significant amendments or unforeseen dissension, we should be in the clear. But like day-to-day stock prices, you can't predict what a politician will do. What we know about the deal is that rather than raising the debt limit to some set amount, the debt limit will be suspended outright until 2025. In exchange for that suspension, there will be spending adjustments across the board in places like IRS funds and remaining COVID relief. And on top of those cuts, the current pause on federal student loan payments will be lifted. Now, I know the student debt crisis is a huge topic of conversation, and with good reason. There's a lot to discuss. So to save time here, let's hold off on talking about that and leave it at this. If you have a federal student loan, it's probably best to assume you'll need to make payments moving forward. Work that into your budget. Mentally prepare for adding that bill back to your expenses. Is there a chance student debt gets canceled? Sure, but the worst scenario is that it doesn't, and you're blindsided with that monthly bill. Anyways, I do apologize for the delay, but the update was important to set the stage for what's coming this week and next. With that, hope you had a great Memorial weekend. Let's keep going. Tesla gave investors some of the best news since the start of Elon's Twitter saga, with the announcement of a deal between Tesla and rival car manufacturer Ford. The deal opened the doors for Ford's EVs to use Tesla's charging technology. Specifically, Ford EVs will have access to Tesla's charging stations moving forward. First, through the implementation of special adapters for existing Fords, followed by future Ford EVs integrating the same charging hardware that comes with Tesla vehicles. This is great for Ford owners who have been limited to non-Tesla charging stations outside of their homes. The new deal gives Ford drivers access to 12,000 Tesla superchargers across the US and Canada. And as it stands, one of the largest hurdles to the EV industry is simply a lack of infrastructure to support the day-to-day use of their vehicles. You could have the greatest EVs in the world, but what good are they without anywhere to charge them? I can't recall if I've ever spoken about this in a previous video, but I've always thought Tesla extending their charging network to other EV makers made sense for both Tesla and the industry as a whole. Tesla has had the distinct advantage of being early to the game. They reached mass production before others, released long-distance batteries before others, and captured enormous market share before their competitors could even establish themselves. Why shouldn't they try to become the industry's main provider of charging stations? It's just another way that they can leverage their technology to make more money and continue to be at the center of the EV industry. The reason why I say it makes sense for Tesla's competitors to make a deal like Ford just did is because they don't have the time or resources to enter the battle for most charging stations. All EV manufacturers need to be focusing on improving the quality and reliability of their vehicles. They need to focus on developing a product that is viable enough for a gas-powered vehicle owner to make the switch to electric. It's a much tougher task to beat Tesla in auto sales while simultaneously trying to build charging stations to rival theirs. For manufacturers like Ford, every dollar invested in EV matters. So leverage the existing infrastructure while you focus on what really matters. As a Tesla investor, I love this deal. It's a step in the right direction after a tough year for the company's branding. Now they just need to rein in some quality issues, take the release of the new Cybertruck slow, and continue to explore partnerships that'll cement them as the EV titan. Oh, and I just found out Tesla's Model Y was the world's best-selling vehicle in Q1 of 2023, the first time ever for an EV. So congratulations to Tesla. Love to hear it. And that's all I have for the video. If there's anything you'd like to talk about, I welcome you to leave a comment to get that discussion started. If you enjoy this type of content, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and sharing with others. As always, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care of yourself, and best of luck.